you know, Tig, who I think more than possibly anyone was, you know, the biggest shoe-in on this. He's been phenomenal and just sometimes freaks me out with the way he plays.
There's no one that can touch him now. I genuinely think he is the best tight head in the world at the minute.
You go down to New Zealand, they don't really rate anybody. You know? They don't
even know who you are.
They don't, but they rated him. In fairness, they rated you. Didn't rate me. but they did. They rated him.
Crouch, bind, set.
Joe presents The House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone.
It's test week on House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone, and we have no goodie this week, but we have another special man in our ranks tonight. Shane Horgan is back. And I missed you last night, Shaggy. How's things?
It's good. Thanks for having me, Seán. I couldn't do this and not do it with you, so I'm back for 1 week only.
1 week and 1 week only.
Yeah.
How's life?
It's very good. Are you back in training? You look as if you've really wasted away during the pre-season.
Yeah, I tell you, I have a few kilos on me at the minute, so I have. Back in pre-season this week for the first time. A bit of a shock to the system, I must say, especially in this heat. But enjoying it all the same, and kind of taking it in my stride again. Number 15 for me, 15 pre-season.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you doing everything all the young lads are doing, or do you get to pick your own stuff?
I am absolutely not doing what the young lads are doing because I'm not able.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do the Bronco anyway, that's for sure. I done my own.
A lot of flexibility work for you in the pre-season, is it, Seán?
Yeah, a lot of pool work.
Yeah, a lot of pool flexibility,
a lot of walking, and
all the important
bits and pieces
stuff
like that. Yeah. No, but it's good. It's good. But glad the weather is good. There's good buzz around the place, London Irish, and yeah, we're looking forward to the year ahead.
Well, good luck on it, mate.
Yeah, it's good. Big things this week. The Lions have been announced. Gats has named his team.
Yeah, and we all knew it before before we should have. That was a bit strange. The coaches hate that, don't they, so much? Absolutely.
They do, and Gats especially would hate that, because I remember the last tour, he was very, very hot on making sure that we were so tight-lipped about everything. But somehow it always gets out. The team always gets out. It's happened to us over the years. It's happened to all Irish teams. Joe Smith, I think, had a full investigation into how the team was getting out the time he was there. So I don't know who
Luke Fitzgerald nearly ended up in handcuffs over that.
I'm putting it bet it was Luke. Yeah, he went straight into independent job afterwards. So there must have been an underhander somewhere along the lines. Any serious reactions to the team? What did you think initially? Who were you surprised by? There
was a couple of surprises, but you know, across the board, there's a lot of good players on this tour, and I'd say, you know, Gatland said that he thought it was the trickiest selection he's had so far as a Lions coach, and that actually makes sense, because even I was going through it last week, and I was picking, and a couple of decisions you would just toss a coin almost, you know, and Gatland obviously has more insight than we have on the from the outside looking in, but. You know, I was a little bit surprised at Van der Merwe, just because I think the Springboks will go to the air, and if you don't have the air covered massively, you're going to be in trouble. So I wouldn't necessarily have gone with him. It's not his key component to his game. Also, sort of the reading and defence. I think the Lions will have to make good reads. It's one of the weaker areas of his game. But he's been sensational with the ball going forward, sensational. I don't think anyone's carried as powerfully as he has, so I can understand why he's gone with that selection. Hogg, I would have gone with Hogg as well, but I'm kind of surprised he's gone, just again for the aerial piece, and maybe a little bit of a soft inside shoulder, but I think what he gives you in attack is what you need. But and Byrne as well, and listen, we'll come on to these later, but I thought Tyke Byrne was really unlucky not to start. He's probably had, you know, close to the best tour, along with Josh Adams. But
I think the whole Van der Merwe thing as well. I was thinking about this last night, actually, when I was lying in my bed just about to sleep, thinking about tonight. I was saying to myself, it's a typical Gats selection though, because he always goes on about being bigger, stronger. Like he drills it into the Welsh boys all the time. And then when you look at Van der Merwe with the ball in his hand, as you say, he's been unbelievable. But I would question a few things in D, as you say, and yeah, it's going to be, he'll have to prove himself at the weekend.
He will, you know, and you listen, it's a quality team. with quality players, I think the big thing is, you know, how he sets up and how he gets them to play, and that's the stuff that comes from Gatty, that's the stuff that comes from Gregor Townsend. You have to be sophisticated against South Africa as well as being physical.
Yeah.
And unless they are that, they're going to struggle.
Gregor's influence, obviously a big one on the selection as well. 3 Scottish in for the first time since 1997.
Yeah, it's that worked out all right, though, didn't it?
It did.
That went all right. You know, I think it's very hard not to say, you know, Hogg doesn't deserve his place. You know, I think he's an exceptional player. He can act as that. Almost a second receiver out wide. If you see the way Scotland use him, they want to get the ball in his hands. I think that's the way the Lions should use him as well. Ali Price, a little bit surprised at that. Not so much because of Conor Murray, I have to say, because I don't think Conor's had a brilliant tour. And I don't think he's had a brilliant 12 months. He had a very, very good game against England at the end of the Six Nations, and that's, you know, I think that carried him on. And he's got a brilliant pedigree, of course. Yeah. And he's a proven Lion as well. But you know, I can see why he went for Ali Price. I would have gone for Davies, I have to say, because I would have liked that partnership with Davies and Dan Biggar.
Yeah.
So again, it's a bit of a roll of the dice. But we'll see how it pans out. And Watson coming off the bench is, I think, important as well. I'm surprised he's gone for the bench he's gone for. I would have gone for 6-2.
Yeah, probably I would have went the same myself, to be honest, but that's what he's done now. I think he had to keep a few boys happy, and that's why he's gone the 5-3 split.
Do you think?
Well, I think, like, who are you gonna Liam Williams is gonna completely miss out if he goes that way, and you're gonna have a playmaker and a 9 on the bench in Moore and Faz. So he needs cover in other positions, obviously.
But then
Daly
gives you the cover. Hogg gives you the cover. You've got it built in. And Henderson can play both centres. Daly can play almost anywhere across the back line. Yeah, I know Liam Williams would be hugely disappointed, but you can't pick out your replacement bench because the chap's going to be disappointed or you're going to be in big trouble.
But you know more than I do about backs, so what do I know?
I thought you were going to say you know more than I do about being on the bench. A big, I suppose, topic that was last week and again this week is the captain. Alan Wynne is back in the side. 3.5 weeks ago, dislocated shoulder. Thoughts on that? You've had your shoulder issues over the years, so you know better than me. But first off, it's a brilliant story of redemption, isn't it? It's phenomenal. Like
Lazarus stuff.
Yeah, it was. You saw him going off, and you knew there was something serious if he was going off. He's a tough nut. He's as tough as they come. So you knew, and you could see even on his face there was something serious. You know, so for him to make it back is remarkable. What sort of shape he's in, you can't be sure because.
I can be 1,000% sure he will not be going for a poach. there is no hope of that happening.
Did you see him right? So the first 3 hits in the game at the weekend. Were all on his left shoulder, and I thought his wing was up a little bit. I didn't think he was opening up the shoulder to make the hit, and maybe you can get away with that. Maybe you can against the Springboks, but I wouldn't like to try.
No, and that's what I stated at that point last week as well. I thought he kept it nice and tight to himself. He wasn't really firing it in. And you're going to be a little bit nervous. I said after doing 6 or 7 months of rehab coming back from a shoulder, you're still like a little bit apprehensive with it. So I think it is a bit of a gamble what they've done. But as I said last week, it's something he has no tomorrow. This is his last roll of the dice at this, so it doesn't matter if it pops again with him. He's done and dusted. If it holds up, great.
Yeah, and sure, everybody or the vast majority of these guys will be carrying some little knock. I know this isn't a little knock. This is a serious thing that's happened to him. But you're never 100% fit as a rugby player. Very, very rarely. You're always sort of carrying something and you're managing it. Now he's managing something really big, and it's how he manages it. But you're dead right. Like if it was you, if it was I, you would 100% do it. You'd give yourself every chance, and give the team every chance. So he's obviously in a position that he thinks he can contribute at the level that he needs to contribute. Because I don't think he'd be sort of selfish enough to go. To be really half cocked. He'll think that he'll be able to deliver a performance that's worthy of him. And listen, who's to disagree? We'll see. If it pops out, he'll be off and someone else will be on, and that'll be it. But
job done.
Job done.
Do you think Alan Wynne's selection and starting had anything to do with Conor's form?
I don't think so. I think it had more to do with him as an individual, and what he can bring to a team. I'm not sure. For example, if Alan Wynne couldn't play, I don't think that Murray would be playing. I think he would still be on the bench. I think so. So it's certainly, when assessing Alan Wynne-Jones, it's more than just his individual performance, certainly, and what he can bring physically. It's what else he can contribute. Decision making is key as well, and I think that's one of the things that, and this is probably a bit harsh on Conor, because Conor hasn't played any games as captain hardly at all. He wasn't and correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't a big leader even within this senior leadership groups in Ireland through all the years. So making on-field decisions, he's just not used to it. So, and Alan Wynne is and has been doing that for years. So that decision-making ability is really important. And not just, whether you take a penalty, whether you go for a scrum, but, what you do in different areas of the field when you take that bit more risk. How you motivate the players, or what you talk to the players at different times, and when you really go for it. And he delivers that as well. But that's fine, and that's an important part of it. But as you know, if you're not physically right, and if you're not physically right against the Springboks, it's going to show up.
I think Gats has that kind of relationship with him as well, of he completely trusts everything he does. And as you say, we said this a couple of weeks ago, like Conor, I don't think would see himself as that captain kind of person either. Yeah. Although he would lead certain things and know his game plan inside out and all his detail inside out, but he's not one of those Alan Wynne-Joneses who has the other thing is to respect the referees, and that big presence and making those tough decisions when in the heat of battle, which is going to be it's going to be a rattling game at the weekend, and one which I can't wait for. If he doesn't stay on for 80 minutes, who goes captain?
I think you'd probably look at Stuart Hogg, and he's going to have a big game as well. There's big pressure on him to deliver, as I said at the top. The high ball, he's going to be tested. But if they kick loosely to him, he's a sensation. He's phenomenal. His footwork is so good. I love watching him play. He's exactly the type of player I like. But then again, I love Liam Williams as well. And if he isn't delivering, then Liam Williams will be on there quick. And I know you've great time for Liam, given he set up your try last time, last tour against
slipped him a tenner afterwards.
But you see, that's what I love about him and Hogg, that they have the courage to back their own skill set and the ambition to run from deep. And that is where you're going to get most of your gains from against South Africa. And that sounds contradictory, because they're such a tight defensive unit. But it's where you can develop sort of loose play, or where you get them out of their really controlled defensive pattern. That's where you have options. So you have to have players that can take advantage of that. And Hogg, it definitely is one of them. He's captained Scotland many times.
He has the experience to do it.
Yeah, he'll be okay. But and there's not too many others that, although there's experienced players there who would step up. I think Ty could potentially. I think Dan Bigger could easily captain as well, and that would be a sensible.
No one would understand Ty, though. That's the problem. They're all looking around saying, "What's he saying?" Speaking of these guys, let's have a look at actually the squad in a bit more depth. Anthony Watson.
Yeah, he would have been my pick as well. I thought at the start of this tour, I thought it was really clear who the wings were lining up as, and I would be totally wrong, because I thought they were Josh Adams and I thought Reece Zaman. I thought that looked like a really good balance to the wing play. They're both playing sensationally. Adams has got to be really disappointed not to be in the 20.
He was the first one on my team sheet, honestly.
And it's probably only sort of Watson that would keep him out. I don't know if he's carrying a niggle or what the thinking is behind, or they've seen something in training, but he's been phenomenal through the Six Nations, and he literally couldn't have had a better tour. No. He couldn't have had. So I don't know what else he could have done. But that's but the fact that Watson is picked just says how good Watson is, and I can't disagree with that, because I think when he came on, he took his chance as well. His footwork has been phenomenal, super pacey. He's got bigger as well, Seán.
Yeah, he has got bigger, and during the year as well with Bat, he was even when they were playing badly, he was showing glimpses of his magic, his footwork, his acceleration. He didn't put a foot wrong, so I'm excited to see him play.
Yeah.
The big talking point, I suppose, is Elliot Daly at 13, or one of them anyway.
Yeah, I think Gaddy really loves him. He is a very sophisticated player, I think. He gives you a passing game that the Lions need, I think, to get outside the Springbok super up and in defence. Now, I would have gone for a Farrell as a second 5'8", playing him at 12 and bigger and him together. I think that's the way you get around that South African defence, and you drop off and you have that second wave.
Yeah.
Now, Daly's probably picked to do half that job with Henshaw. Henshaw can't do quite that job. Daly can't do quite that job at 13, but together they can almost do it. So that's when I was speaking earlier about how Gatland sets them up. That's really crucial, because if he's just thinking, I'm just going to carry through this Springbok team, I don't think that's going to wash.
He hasn't had really that. He hasn't been that hot though as such. Six Nations, he was dropped in Six Nations. You know what I mean? He wasn't on fire for the club. He needs a big one though. He needs a massive performance. He's been given his shot, I think, now. I know he's had glimpses of what he's able to do in terms of the way he's able to run with the ball on tour, and he's incredibly intelligent as well, rugby player. But I think he really needs a big game. I thought initially to go with Bundy at 12 and Robbie at 13 initially for this test, but
yeah, I just think that's too one-dimensional, and Bundy does a very good job for you, but his passing game isn't there, and I actually think you need a bit more of a passing game against South Africa. Daly, I think he's toured very well, but you're right, probably in the last year he hasn't played as well as he could. I think there's definitely a hangover there from Gats on the last tour. He was so good on that last tour. I know he's playing in the wing, but I think Gats trusts him, similarly as you said with Alan Wynne-Jones. I think he just trusts him as a top quality player.
Be interesting to see what happens. Probably the shoe-in on the tour, there was never in doubt, Robbie Henshaw. Irish.
Yeah, he's one of our boys.
One of our boys.
But it's funny, when I look at the Lions, I never look at it through or I try not to look at it through the prism of Ireland, because, and you'll know this from when you've been on Lions tours, that kind of goes out the window, and you're very Lions focused. So when I'm sort of looking at it, I think where. Who really is the best for this position, and I think Henshaw is in it. I would have liked him to have a little bit more game time. He was the difference between Ireland salvaging a Six Nations, and I think he possibly saved Farrell's job. I think he was, because when that wasn't looking good, when things weren't looking good against England in that first quarter of the last game, he single-handedly brought Ireland back into it. And anyone who can be that dominant in a Six Nations game, and he has shown it through his career, I think you almost have to find a place for him. So he was in form, a little bit of an injury. Hopefully that's behind him.
Yeah.
He has a huge job to do. If he does not play well, I don't think the Lions win.
It'll be tough, yeah. He is the most competitive person in the world when he's on the field. The nicest guy off it. But he puts his foot in your throat. he strangles you when he's on the field. But he's one of these people as well who is naturally so fit, so determined, and I'm just saying that in terms of, yes, he would have liked probably another game himself, but he's just one of these people. He'll show up at the weekend. I just know what he'll bring. Yeah. And he'll do it for 80 plus minutes. But I do agree with you. I think he is a massive cog in the way the Lions have to play this week and to beat these boys.
He has to carry massively. He has to be absolutely solid in defence. He has to work. His work rate has to be exceptional. All of those things, I would say, I'd say right now that's going to happen. The other bit is he does need to be a little bit sophisticated in the way he distributes the ball, because there, with that flying up and in defence, there is going to be chances to go over the top. There's going to be ones around the back. There is going to be, there's going to be...
His kicking game might come into it as well.
His kicking game might come into it. He actually had one really good kick last time out. One got charged down, but he had one really good kicking game, one really good kick last time out as well. So if he puts those other bolts on to the rest of his performance, which I know will be top quality, then again, that would be hugely influential. And without that, again, overstating, without that, I'm not sure the Lions can win.
Yeah. We spoke about Van der Merwe already. We know what he's going to bring and what his challenges are going to be. Dan Biggar, for me anyway, I went to that Japan game and I just thought, and I was watching him train in Jersey the week previously, I thought he was absolutely he was on it, like properly, touch of class everywhere he went, bossing the team around, really like taking ownership of the whole thing, and that's what it seemed like from Jersey, watching training up close to him. Your thoughts on him at the minute?
I'd say he went into this Lions tour going, this is my tour, this is it. There's no, Sexton's gone, Farrell isn't number one anymore. He's lost a bit of the sheen, and they've just come off a great Six Nations, and this has been building for him for a while, and it seems to fit him, doesn't it? Like it suits him, and he's just exuding confidence. He's controlling the game. His own personal game is really good. It's a great position for the Lions to be in, to have someone at 10 that is so confident. I think he thinks he's going to deliver this series, and that's half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was actually listening to some of the interviews he'd done over the past few weeks. His whole mindset seems to be at a different level at the minute compared to the Dan Bigger I knew drinking in a wine bar in a vineyard after the last tour. But he just seems so focused, so, as you say, confident, and he's nearly one of these lads you go, he's going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, his stature has changed, even his where his ranking in the or in the pecking order in the Lions, it's been elevated, and Alan Wynne-Jones is on a different sort of level almost, but definitely he's just below. He's a guy, I'd imagine he's really leading from the front at the moment in everything that he's doing.
Typical out half, giving out to everyone and bossing them around,
abusing us.
Yeah, abusing people.
Yeah. They're quiet until they get a bit of confidence, and then they're abusing everyone.
Yeah. And then you have the quite Scottish boy at 9, Ali Price. He's been very sharp in all his games. He's really put his hand up.
Well, he's played his way in really, and I would have thought that and I think he may well have been third choice going into this tour, but I think we've seen his ability to put tempo into the game is a crucial thing, and that's a natural part of his game. I think Davies is I think he's a better player, and I think Davies linking with bigger, it would have been crucial. I'm surprised they haven't gone with that, because these players haven't had a lot of game time. COVID has, cut down the game time even further for some of the players. So that isn't a relationship that has developed. I'm not saying it can't work, but I'm saying I think Davies would have been a better choice. Now, the tempo he puts in is really crucial, though, because if you're going to beat South Africa, you can't be ponderous. You can't, be waiting for the ball at the back of the scrum, bringing another forward in, having that long lead, having a look around what's going on. And that's sort of Connor's game now. As he's got that bit older, he's less tempo, he's more, what are my options? Control. And then picking the right one. And that very often can be the box kick. But I think in order to move this big pack around, in order to not let them get in their defensive system, then you need tempo. And a great example of it is, during the week with one of the analysts on Twitter, Brett Igo, I think it was, there's the way the Springboks work around in defence. They flood the open sides. They work really hard to get to the open side, but while they're getting there, they leave that little bit of a space in the short side. They fill that up. If you can get tempo and go back into that space really quickly, then one, there's potential for a break, but also it might slow their wrap around on the open side. There, so I can see why he's picked Price, and now tempo relies on speed of ruck ball, and that that's the clear out. But I think if the ball is there, he'll be getting it moving. Yeah,
he's had a few little snipes and a few darts here and there as well. He's just looked that little bit more dangerous, hasn't he?
Yeah. Who would you have gone with?
Oh, I thought he'd actually stick with Moore, to be honest, just to start, because of experience and maybe a little bit of credit in the bank. But you look at him when he came on in that game, he got yellow carded and he didn't really play that well more when he came off the bench. And I was like, you're kind of, it was up for grabs then again, kind of thing. I thought he played very well against Japan, but I do think Davies is a running threat. He's niggly, he'll get up in your face a lot. He does that kind of shooting in D as well, puts a lot of pressure on 10s and stuff. But yeah,
that's what I like about him. That's what I think he's a niggly player, and I really like those. I hate playing against him, but I like watching them, and when they're on your side, I like them.
Mike Phillips is probably taking credit for it, so he is right now, actually. Yeah. We'll move on to the big boys. Wyn Jones at one. We'll knock off these as front rowers. Cowan Dickey, big game the last day to propel him into the team, and then Tig at Tyhead, obviously, he was a shoe-in. But Wyn Jones, actually, just going back to the Jersey camp, I didn't know much about Wyn Jones. I knew he was playing with Wales, but I couldn't get over the size of him when you're actually standing beside him on the field. Big lump of a man, held his own in everything he done that day, and fits in, I think, into what we need going into this, I suppose, into this pack battle at the weekend, which is going to be, enormous.
Yeah, I had him on my team. I thought he was a shoe-in. I thought he had a very good Six Nations, has played well consistently for a long time. Really gatty type of player as well. Interesting that he is that size as well, and that's always helpful. And of course, on the other side,
a prop to have weight on you.
You've got Tig, who I think more than possibly anyone was the biggest shoe-in on this. He's been phenomenal and just sometimes freaks me out with the way he plays.
There's no one can touch him now. I genuinely think he is the best tight head in the world at the minute.
And I think 4 years ago he came onto the Ireland scene, and it was very good very quickly. But he had a brilliant Lions tour, and I think you'll know this. You go down to New Zealand, they don't really rate anybody. They don't
even know who you are.
They don't rate
no.
you. And but they rated him. In fairness, they rated you. Didn't rate me. but they did. They rated him, and consistently when he's been playing for Ireland, and when Ireland have played at their best, he's played well. But I think he's a phenomenon. He plays a different type of game than any other prop. Like, we've seen that the footwork from him is ridiculous, and it changes games because, again, South Africa are going to be regimented, really well drilled. They're going to make big hits on you if they get the chance. But what they're not going to be expecting is someone for a prop to have a massive step off their right foot and then another step off their right foot, which he can do. So he mixes it all up. And then Cowan Dickey, literally played his way into the starting 15 last time out, I think. I would have had Jamie George ahead. I thought Jamie George has been very good on this tour, very dynamic. His line out has been good.
Carry's been good.
I didn't see too many flaws in his game, but not dissimilar to the selection between Hogg and Williams. You could pick either there, and not make a mistake, and that maybe just Gaddy sees something slightly different, or he goes, right, this guy is riding high. Let's put all the chips on him.
I think it probably came down to the physicality side of it again. At the weekend, never missed a tackle, chopped lads right behind the gain line, good with the ball in his hands, good at the breakdown. And then again, I kind of had Jamie in the squad at least, but then you look at Ken then as well, kind of similar to Cowan Dickey. He'll get off the line, he'll hit people hard, he'll carry well, he doesn't make many mistakes in games. Darts are very good as well.
What about the scrum, and what impact does that have? And Ken Owens,
his weight,
from a scrum, because this, play against the Springboks, and this is the story of the World Cup final. If you don't have your scrum, the game is over.
No, it's done.
There's no way back.
Yeah.
It's like rugby is weird talk about this and that, and you have to have this plan, and you have to do this. Sure, it means nothing if you don't have a scrum. Forget about it.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true, and I think that's his thinking behind it, because you look at the weight that's going to be in the front row with the three starters, and you look at what's coming on as well. And the other thing I was thinking about during the week, the bench that they have in Ken Owens, Rory Sutherland, and Kyle and Sinks, they are compact, low to the ground as well, but incredibly strong scrummagers who are, you know what I mean? The South African bench is better than the starting front row by a mile.
Yeah.
So it is. This is the dangerous thing. So you're dead right. If the Lions don't win the scrum battle, the game is done and dusted.
Yeah.
Into the second row, we spoke about Alan Wynne already and what he's going to bring. Maro was a shoe-in. We all know what he brings. His energy, his physicality, never stops for 80 minutes. Just incredible.
And Henderson has had a great tour. He's had
very unlucky.
He's done really well.
Very unlucky.
And you know what? He'll have a place to play in this tour. I think that's the other thing. Like, the guys who are there, and there will be guys who are disappointed they're on the bench, but they're going to have a big impact. So it's that whole idea of the starting 15 versus the bench. It's almost gone now. Do you know, the disappointment, because you can have as big an influence coming off the bench and be as important. And then there's another cohort of players that aren't in either the 15 or the 23 who will play another part in this tour. There's absolutely nothing more certain than that. And I think Henderson is one of those. I go back to, I think Henderson should have been on the bench, because I think having a 6-2 split, being able to bring him on, particularly when there is a question, I don't care what anyone says, over Alun Jones.
He's a specialist caller as well. That was the big thing for me. But then to have Tadhg Byrne there, he can call, obviously. And if anything happens to Alan Wynne, I presume Courtney will go straight into the row and Tadhg straight to 6, which kind of I was surprised about as well, because Courtney hasn't been firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, what did you think of that selection?
I kind of thought, has Tadhg, what's the difference between the two of them? Really, like, what on this tour? Has Courtney completely stood out? I think Tadhg has been just a menace. Like, I used to hate trend against him. He'd tell you that himself. Yeah. I used to be kneeing him and punching him. And, I'd probably take some of the credit for him leaving. Yeah. But he was, but I loved it at the same time. I always said about him that he had something about him, and that he had like this persona. He trained incredibly hard on the field. He was always in the way. He was always messy, but that's the way he plays the game, and that's why he's so difficult to handle. Yeah. And he's added now to his game in terms of his poach ability and his carrying. His
poaching is phenomenal. The back end of his tackle is very good. I think he works extremely hard with that. His ability to drop the ball off is phenomenal. And I think he's had as good a tour as anyone, with the exception of Josh Adams, who hasn't made it into the 23. So I think he could be rightly disappointed, but he'll have a part to play in this, certainly. But I think perhaps the two things that let him down was ferocity in the carry, maybe, and potentially that initial hit. Is it really? Does he have that really violent hit when it comes to stopping ball carriers dead? I think he does. But I'd say that may have come into the thinking.
I suppose a different scenario when the Springboks are coming around the corner with a pre-latch with Etzebeth and one of the props, like, what you can't go and choke them two boys.
But that's the thing.
You have to chop at the legs and stop them dead, like.
And is that Gaddy thinking that's where that Laws selection has come? He said, actually, maybe he doesn't have everything that Tadhg Byrne has to his game, but maybe we don't need that. We just need a guy who's going to come in a heat-seeking missile, going out smashing lads.
Exactly. And speaking of smashing lads, we have Tom Curry, who's the 7, but he was never really in doubt. Really, I had him. I kind of said last week, if you're picking the form back rowers, you'd probably put him. You have to find somewhere for him and Hamish. But now that they've Hamish on the bench, like Tom is the natural 7 there. I think he's.
I don't think there was any question about that either. I don't think so. Too good.
And Jack Conan, he's had a phenomenal tour, and he deserves his place there. He deserves his test start. Toby has been not at the races yet, but he'll probably play a part in this tour as well. But Jack has been the form number 8, and I can't wait to see him run out the weekend.
It's a lovely story. I know he's Irish as well, so and he's a Leinster man, so we're positively predisposed to him. But I actually think it's pretty. I recently heard him talking about. He hadn't even told his parents that he'd got the letter for the extended list to be on the Lions tour. So when it was being called out, it's like his dad had no idea that he was picked. He was ringing him up and going, "Are you listening to it?" And his dad's going, "No, what?"
Jack is like he's not a strange character, but he's just a bit different. Like, does things his own way, but quite and unassuming and such a nice guy. He's actually, I think he could be a vegan.
You're saying that like I don't know what. It's like,
no, but it's quite difficult for someone like of his size, like, you know what I mean. I think him and his missus, when he met his missus, I think she might have turned him that way.
He's still getting the whey protein in though.
Yeah, well, he's still strong, thank God. Still strong. He's moving well, so
he is. His support play is almost. He does lots of things really well, but his support play is really top quality. If you see the lines he runs a lot of positive lines. So in anticipation of meeting up with somebody going through the centre or over the top or break, and therefore he gets a lot of link plays, or he finishes off a lot of tries. You know, for number 8, he scores a lot because he's on the end of stuff because he works so hard.
He scores an awful lot of tries, and he's always been that kind of. The only one I can compare him to a little bit is like a Jamie Heaslip in terms of he's quite cute of what he does. He doesn't get involved in the hardship of the game, but he doesn't need to, because he has that ability to like break out with tackles, run really good lines, really smart lines. It wasn't like me and Meltahead that was running into people the whole time.
Find a green jersey somewhere I can plough into.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you think that is going to be enough, or that will take you through against the Springboks?
I think just his running ability and what he's able to do with his feet late at the line and stuff, small things like that, I think will make a big difference, to dent the Springboks. And that's why they brought like a Sam Simmons type player as well. Someone who can change the point of attack very late at the lines. As we know, they're going to come off the line and try and smoke you. But they have the feet, to have the carrying ability to actually just get past that first guy maybe, or half a yard past them. Which will make a massive difference to the lines. If we're getting belted behind the gain line at the weekend, it's going to be a very, very long day.
If we don't have footwork, we can forget it, because they come up so fast. Actually, you don't need a huge amount of footwork and they'll fly by.
Yeah.
But and that's where I think there is an advantage for the likes of Furlong, who's front rower, but with back row or centre's feet. But the success or otherwise of that back row, and you could say this about any game, the back row goes well. The team goes well, but the success of that back row, I think, has a lot to do with the success of the front row and how they scrummage. How the line out goes. If there's where they can go to in the line out. So if they can get ball to the back and then you can get over the gain line, it just allows everything to be easier. And this having to run backwards to try and carry a ball is a nightmare.
Moving on, we have our Bach on the ground, Schalk Brits. Sculler, are you there?
I am here. Hello, gents.
We are very good. How are you?
I got my test done today. Went to the stadium. It's quite different. We had load shedding while I did my PCR test, but all good, thank you.
How is the excitement for this first test? What's the vibe like in South Africa at the minute?
Oh, there's only one team that's going to win the fellas. I don't know what you guys are discussing, but from a South African perspective, it's we're very excited. A bit nervous, as I think we're going in a bit underprepared for this test match, but looking forward to the boys pitching up on Saturday.
What did you think of the South African team? Any surprises in your head?
I must say I wasn't expecting Noche and Trevor to start, Ox to start at the front row, but I guess from his perspective, or Rassie's perspective, well, I should rather say Jacques' perspective, he wants to keep the same kind of impact plays from the bench. When we felt our secret weapon in the World Cup was actually the bench coming up. In the first 50 minutes, it was always start, but then the bench can play a role, and I think he's kept to this particular role from the bench perspective.
How important do you think that Springboks A performance was? Because I saw the interview with Rassie Erasmus afterwards, and he just seemed so delighted that it had happened and the performance. Has that set up what they're doing at the moment?
Are you speaking about the SAA game?
Yeah.
I think we were undercooked, and I was quite surprised with the kind of defensive effort they had, the work rate they had while they were actually doing fitness sessions in their rooms, where a lot of the boys were doing Zoom exercises with the 20-kilogram plates, because there was a lot of positive tests that they had to isolate, the false positives. So from that perspective, I was very surprised with the kind of guts the boys showed. And that sort of gave us a bit of confidence coming into this weekend. So from our perspective, there was a lot of starters that played and a lot of boys that put up their hand. So, I'm looking forward to Saturday's game.
What about Rassie as Waterboy? How did that go down? There's been a lot in the media this week about should he be allowed to do that, but he's breaking no laws.
what is within the rules is although he's not carrying a lot of water, he probably forgot it on the start line. But he was giving the boys water and some fresh juice and all those kind of things. So it's within the rules, I would say, fellas.
We're not going to see Gary doing a similar job, I don't think. And come here, what? How is the 15 and the 23 that Gary has selected? How's it gone down generally in South Africa?
From a Springboks perspective, the boys are very happy. I was quite surprised with some of the line selections, but let me focus on the Springboks. I think it's nice to see Polly playing his 50th Test match, and I sort of expected the team. I wasn't expecting the front row, to be honest, but with Kitsy and Malcolm and Francie playing together for a lot of Test matches, I think he wants the same impact from the bench, and with Alstead playing fantastically for I guess I can't get on the team now, on the French team. He's been playing very good rugby, so hopefully he'll be on form this weekend and sort of fulfill Dwayne's role.
Sculler, do you think that's a tactic by Rassie and the coaching staff to start the front row they've started and finish with a stronger front row? Like, you as hooker, which front row would you like to be in?
I always like to finish the game, not always by choice, but because the coach decided I should finish the game. But from my perspective, I think the first 50 minutes is very tight. And if you've got a front row that can hold its own and bring another front row up that's equally as good, I think from a height perspective, I think a lot of people forget about that. But all three of our starting front rows exactly the same height. So that makes it sometimes very difficult to scrum against. They're quite short, they're stocky, and they're very low to the ground and fantastic scrummagers. And then if you look at Malcolm, Francie and Kitsy, they're tall front rows. So I think from that perspective, he's keeping to their combination, just from a scrumming perspective. He's got a strategy, and hopefully that pays off.
Well, it's certainly going to be a big weekend for us all here watching. Sculler, thank you for joining us again, and hope you enjoyed your golf last week.
It was fantastic in Fancourt, gents. It was phenomenal. But now it's back to work, I guess. And I'll be at the Test match this weekend, so I can't wait to watch the boys perform, both sides. Hopefully it's just great rugby.
Well, good luck, but not too much.
We'll chat to you next week.
Cheers, James.
Cheers.
Bye.
Now, during the course of the series, subscribers to the official British and Irish Lions app powered by Vodafone are voting for their player of the series and also pick their line starting 15 on the Lions 15 selector. Not sure many would have picked the same as Gats, mind you, but here we are. We thought we would pick our all-time Lions 15 over the course of the next few weeks. So this week we're going to look at the front five. Loosehead. We have a few names here.
Why have you got me speaking about this?
Well, it could have been a loosehead at one point.
It's bad enough with modern props. You're going through the annals of history.
You'll know the names anyway, so see what you think. We have Jason Leonard, Gethin Jenkins, or Ian McLaughlin.
I'm going to go for Jason Leonard there because I've had a few beers with him over the years. He's a good he's a good man. Now, Gatland is as well, mind you, they all are, aren't they?
They all are.
He's on the tour at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jason.
We'll go with Jason. He'd be a good tour. He's a very good tourist.
Very good tourist. In the hooker position, we have Keith Wood, Brian Moore, or Peter Wheeler.
No decision there, Seánie. Woody actually made everybody fall in love with the Lions again in '97. My generation, I'm obviously a bit older than you, but that was captured everyone's imagination. He was phenomenal on that tour.
The court case.
Oh,
famous court case as well. Yeah, I'm going to Keith Wood as well. Have to with an Irishman. Tight head, we have Fran Cotton, Graham Price, Sid Miller, or Paul Wallace.
I'm going to go for, it could be Tyg Furlong. If he has a good tour here, I'm going for Tyg Furlong.
Tyg Furlong.
He's already had one phenomenal tour. He's already had one phenomenal tour. He could have a second one.
Yeah, I'd probably just pick Sid Miller here because his name stands out to me. I've never seen any of them play rugby really over my career anyway. Well, Wally I suppose did. He was handy enough. 4 or 5, Martin Johnson, Willie John McBride, Gordon Brown, or Paul O'Connell. This is a very tough one.
No, I think it is tough, but I think Martin Johnson captain 97, captain twice. Phenomenal.
Head of Willie John.
Head of Willie John, yeah. Well, there's room for two, isn't there?
Yeah, well, 4 or 5, yeah, I suppose, yeah. So who's your second then?
Well,
You're going
it's going to be Paulie or Willie John.
Which would you
I'm going for a modern twist. It's Paulie.
Right, I'd go for Jono and Willie John.
All right.
Yeah, I'd go with them too, just because they're too old school. There'd be a massive brawl in the middle of the field if those two were playing, wouldn't it? It'd be mental. We'll be picking our back row and halfbacks next week. If you haven't already, download the official British and Irish Lions app powered by Vodafone. So Shaggy, that's all we have for this week. Predictions for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm terrible at predictions, so whatever I do, put your money on the opposite, Seánie. I think it's very difficult given the lead up to this game. South Africa, we haven't seen them in 2 years. Ridiculous. The Lions have been interrupted by everything that's going on, COVID. Completely unique. I think on the face of it, I think South Africa are favourites. I think if I think the Lions can beat them if they play in a more sophisticated way, if they really are ambitious and go after them. I think if they go purely toe to toe and just try and grind them down, I think they're going to be in trouble. So I unfortunately I think I'm edging towards South Africa this weekend,
and I am going to go for the Lions because I just think we'll see a little bit of a difference in our D this week. I hope to see a lot more line speed, and as you say, with the team they've selected, just going to play this expansive game, hopefully run South Africa around a little bit, stay away from the big boys. So I'm going to back the boys. I'm going to say the Lions.
Do you know what we haven't seen either? We haven't seen many sophisticated set piece moves that Gregor Townsend is really good at, and I'm hoping
they'll come up this weekend.
I hope they'll come up this weekend.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers, Seánie.
Thanks a million for that again, Shaggy. That's all we have time for this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to House of Rugby powered by Vodafone. We'll be back on Monday morning to pick through the bones of the first test.
You've been watching the House of Rugby powered by Vodafone.